Sorry, the doorbell rang as I was finishing up the last video. I just wanted to make some more remarks about this notion of judgment, which is also a very rich word. I don't know if I've looked it up. I haven't. But I'll put it in there. Oh, here it is. Yeah, also, a very rich word, different, very subtle distinctions in meaning. Judgment is just the act of judgment, as Webster says. The act or process of the mind in comparing its ideas to find their agreement or disagreement and to ascertain truth. Sometimes, it's the ascertaining of truth part that is difficult. And judgment, there are judgments of different kinds. In deductive logic, at least, simple deductive logic, like the syllogism about Socrates, judgment here as to what the conclusion should be is not difficult. That is, we judge that the conclusion that Socrates is mortal follows from the premises that they deductively imply the premises, the conclusion. And so judgment, and sometimes is easy. When it comes to different sorts of arguments, and most of the arguments that we come up with, most of the arguments that we are presented with, people throw at us in life are not syllogistic deductive arguments. They're complex inductive arguments. And that's something we get into, of course, an inductive argument. And that is an argument where the there's probably better ways to put it than that, but that's okay with me this way. In an inductive argument, the premises seem to support the conclusion. That is, the premises seem to give us reason to believe that the conclusion is true. But even if they are true, that is, even if the premises are true, they do not make the truth of the conclusion necessary. That is, in a deductive argument, if the premises are true, the conclusion must be true, can't be false. But in an inductive argument, even if all the premises are true, it is still possible for the conclusion to be false. That's what makes it an inductive argument. And most of the arguments that we're presented with are inductive in nature. So we are forced to use our judgment in a different way to make difficult judgments, and this is a whole sort of different sense of the word judgment. We exercise our faculty of judgment, we say, in those situations where the correct conclusion cannot be arrived at simply by the mechanical application of rules. For instance, if you're an engineer or you're going into a field like that, what differentiates it, ideally, an engineer from a technician is that everything a technician does can be found in a rule book. Like the correct thing to do can be found in a rule book. So it's just a matter of applying rules. Whereas in engineering, it requires judgment, because sometimes the correct answer to an engineering problem is not to be found in the simple application of rules, but requires judgment. There may be any number of different so-called correct solutions, but the engineer is the one who is thought to be qualified to find the best one. Same in medicine. A doctor is someone who has the capacity to find the best course of action with regard to a patient's health out of any available kind of plausible thing. So judgment is, you use your judgment. That is, it may be that we're in a situation where the right answer is not clear, and you need to exercise. I don't know. This is all very circular judgment. So, but that, after all, is what we're after. When it comes to simple claims and arguments as well, simple claims Uh, I don't know. Michelangelo is the most important figure in Renaissance art. That's a claim. Somebody has made a judgment, obviously, there, that Michelangelo is the most important figure in Renaissance art. And if we were to evaluate that claim, we would have to use our own judgment. It's certainly not clear. It's not obvious that he is, but it may be true. How would we judge a claim like that? When it comes to arguments, we're given arguments all the time. I mean, there's an argument you'll hear bandied about, thrown around, probably completely false, but people believe it. I mean, immigrants are bad for the economy. We should limit immigration. How do we judge whether that conclusion is true? That is, whether it's actually been supported by the premises, even if you throw in more premises. I've thrown a bunch of other premises too. Immigrants take jobs away from citizens, or immigrants lower wages, therefore we should limit immigration. How do you judge whether that's a sound argument? Well, I mean, first of all, it's an inductive argument, so its premises don't necessarily imply its conclusion, but it doesn't mean it's a bad inductive argument. But how do we know whether these things are true? I mean, if we're going to judge whether the argument is sound, which would mean, amongst other things, that its conclusion is correct, that we should limit immigration, we would have to be able to evaluate the claims that are being made. Are immigrants really bad for the economy? Do they actually take jobs away from citizens of the country? Do they actually lower wages? I don't know. I mean, we're to really judge with discernment the soundness of this argument. We would, I mean, how do we do that? It's a matter of judgment. It's a matter of being in a position to make a reasonable decision about whether something somebody has presented to you as true, or something you presented to yourself as true, really is true. It's not. There's no science to it. Again, in inductive arguments, we have to judge when we judge whether they're good or not. It's not as easy as with deductive arguments. So trying to, I guess this is our goal. I guess this is everyone's goal, not just in this course, which can actually do, help you only in a limited way. But I suppose that for all of us, wanting to be intelligent human beings, is that being able to improve our sense of judgment, our capacity to judge, is really what it's all about.